Hi there, folks. Welcome to the Talking Magic channel. I'm Korean. You can call me Korean. And joining me is my co-host, Trizin.
Hey.
That was nice. Alright, today is a very, very special day. We are going to be doing a complete review of Aether Revolt, the newest set to have just dropped. So the full spoiler dropped today on Friday, and we're going to be going through every single card and, putting our little expertise on it.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna be a doozy. This set is ridiculous.
Alright, let's go to the first card, which is white, obviously. So we're going to be going with Wooborg Order, starting with white, then blue, and Alright, so our first card in Aether Revolt is Ariel Modification. So this is enchantment aura for 5 mana for white. You enchant a creature or vehicle, and then as long as the permanent is a vehicle, it's a creature in addition to its other types. And it gets +2/+2 and flying.
I'm not too sure about this. I mean, it does have all the downsides of being an aura, which you obviously get 2 for 1 in many instances. It does have the nice effect of giving evasion and helping any of those vehicles that you have that are big, but you don't have the ability to crew them, like putting on the 1 mana 7/11 vehicle. That's kind of funny. But overall, I think this card is kind of a trap.
Yeah,
and at 5 mana,
auras are never good.
It's expensive.
Especially at 5 mana, you just get blown out and you're sad. And you're down 2 cards. Yeah, auras are generally not good, especially one that costs 5 mana. That's just no way, no. Alright, Aeronaut Admiral is a 3 generic and a white for a creature human pilot. 3/1, flying, and vehicles you control have flying. I don't know how this does that, but there you go. just do something and they have fly.
It's a 4 mana 3/1 flyer. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's also 3 power in the air is not terrible either. It's an okay card. I give it a 2 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, and when you got a flying Aerodara Express, not many people can argue with that.
That's true.
Alright.
Next card, Aether Inspector, 4 CMC, 3 generic, 1 white for a creature dwarf artificer, vigilance, 2/3 stats. And when he enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. Whenever he attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token.
So this is part of a cycle that do basically have the same text at the bottom and a little bit different keywords at top. This one's okay. I mean, 4 mana 2/3 vigilance is nothing crazy. And when you attack, you get another body, I suppose, which is nice. I mean, it has vigilance, so attacking isn't that big of a deal. You'll swing in, you'll still have a blocker, and you get another 1/1. This is one of the better ones, I think, of the cycle.
It is an okay card, and for a common 4 mana, and you're getting essentially 3/4 in stats just by itself, plus it can turn any energy into additional 1/1s. It's not the worst thing, but a 4 mana 2/3 is a really weak main stat line.
Vigilance helps.
Vigilance does help, but I would prefer this thing to have evasion rather than vigilance. But it's okay.
Yeah, this entire cycle is kind of a resounding okay.
It's a decent common.
Yep. Moving on, we got Aether Geode Miner, 1 generic and a white for a Dwarf Scout, 3/1, and whenever it attacks, you get 2 energy, and then you can pay 2 to exile Aether Geode Miner, and then return to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Honestly, I think this card it's not worth being a rare, but this card is strong. A 2 mana creature with 3/1 in stats, so you got 3 power on it. Plus it has pseudo evasion, like if your opponent tries to remove it, or like during combat, you can pay 2 energy after you attack with it, bounce it back to your hand. There are situations where this card's alright. I mean, it really helps if you have other energy producers, just so that you can bounce it back to your hand whenever your opponent tries to remove it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
I mean,
but
it's a 3/1, which kind of I like the 1 toughness is really tough. I mean,
if it was an uncommon,
yeah, I mean,
if it's an uncommon, I would be a lot more confident in it. But the fact this takes up your rare spot, that's.
I mean, you attack with it, and you're probably gonna have to pay that 2 mana every time to make it survive because it's only 1 toughness. It's not amazing, for sure. Cheap crew, cheap pilot though. If you have any good like.
That is true.
3 vehicle. It's not terrible, but it's not that great either. I don't think I'd first pick it.
Alright, next card is Airdrop Aeronauts. It's a 5 CMC, 3 generic, 2 white, for a flying 4/3 creature with Revolt. And its Revolt trigger is, so whenever a permanent leaves the battlefield, or rather, if a permanent has left the battlefield when Airdrop Aeronauts is played, or when it enters the battlefield, if you get Revolt to trigger, you gain 5 life.
Now, this is the start of the ridiculously good uncommons that are in this set. This is fantastic. 5 mana 4/3 is fine right by itself. You'll never be upset about that. But if you get a Revolt trigger, you also gain 5 life. That's just gravy.
Yeah, 5 mana 4/3 flyer. That card hits hard. Plus, it rewards you for picking a higher drop card, because that life gain, padding your life total is pretty helpful when you go for those 5 CMC cards. So, and not only putting you at 5 life ahead in the race, but it swings for 4 in the air. So it doesn't take many swings from this guy before your opponent could be dead. So
5 swings from full health and he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to see how easy it is to trigger Revolt, but a lot of these Revolt cards have been very, very strong.
Solid uncommon.
Yep, very good. Okay, we have Ally Evasion to 1 white for an instant. Choose one. Target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, or return target creature you control to its owner's hand.
Now, this is part of a cycle, which is modular cards at the common level. And this one, it's all right. It's a combat trick. And it also is a bounce, so it can help you protect some of your creatures, basically trade your bounce for their removal spell. The part I don't like about it is the target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, because normally in pump spells you value power over toughness, so it can help you trade smaller things into bigger things. But I mean, it's all right.
The fact that it is 1 mana is definitely appealing, or at least is much more appealing than normal pump spells. Pumps and combat tricks are usually not that amazing, because sure, you'll kill them, maybe, but you're also using another card to do that, and just they're kind of awkward. This one's okay. I mean, I think a lot of Built to Last that was in Kaladesh, which was also 1 mana and a lot better than this. I mean, I suppose it's that common. Can't remember if that was uncommon or not. But like you said, yeah, you're right. +1 power is a bit weak for a pump. And the returning target creature you control is actually not that bad, like you said. It's an okay card. I wouldn't mind picking it up about halfway through the draft, because it's not like an early pick, but you wouldn't be upset about getting this, I think. But I think it's easily cuttable.
Yeah, it's cuttable. All right, next card, Audacious Infiltrator. It's 2 mana, 1 generic, white. For a 3/1 dwarf rogue, common, Audacious Infiltrator can be blocked by artifact creatures. I think this is a perfectly playable common. A 2 mana 3/1 stat line is not bad, especially a common. And the fact it can't be blocked by artifact creatures means that servos can't chump it. Of certain vehicles, that's not going to be a problem, as well as other artifact creatures.
Right.
Yeah, this card's perfectly playable.
I never like 1 toughness creatures though. Yes, it can't be blocked by servos, which is the biggest problem with 1 toughness creatures. They get chumped by little tokens. But you also have to realize that in this draft format, there's not too many ways to get servos. Like Kaladesh had Fabricate in a lot of cards, which is very useful. But Fabricate is no longer here in Aether Revolt. It is in that 1 pack. You'll get 1 pack of Kaladesh. But I don't know how powerful that effect is. Can't be blocked. Can't be blocked is always a strong keyword. But I'm not crazy on this guy. 1 toughness is a deal breaker, in my opinion. Alright, let's move on. We have Bastion Enforcer. There's a 2 generic and a white for a 3/2. That's it. Vanilla filler.
Meh. Yeah, it's filler.
Here's the thing, right? These vanilla cards with off stats, if it's a square stat card, I might consider putting them in my decks. But a lot of times Wizards makes these vanilla cards with uneven stats, usually less than their convert mecha, so they don't pass the vanilla test. And the reasoning is that they serve as filler for your decks when you can't get enough creatures. But I never run into that problem, and if I do, I really don't want to be playing suboptimal cards, because they don't. I mean, at least other cards with lower stats and higher mana cost at least usually do something. These vanilla creatures, they just sit there on the board and can't trade as effectively as other cards. So yeah.
All right. Next card is a rare, Call for Unity. It's 5 CMC, 3 generic, 2 white, for an enchantment with Revolt. So if a permanent leaves the battlefield, for this card in that turn, so it triggers once per turn at the beginning of your end step, you put a unity card counter on Call for Unity, and creatures you control get +1/+1 for each unity counter on Call for Unity.
This is really expensive.
This card comes down too late for it to be effective. Ideally, you're going to want at least +2/+2 for this card to be considered good, in my opinion. So that's 2 turns after you played a 5-mana enchantment that does nothing the turn you play it. Well, it can if something dies that turn, I suppose. But it is expensive, and it comes late. I think this card is a trap.
Yep, definitely. Now, it'd be disappointing to be in their rare slot for sure. I don't think it's good enough. And yeah, that's it. It's a weak rare. Alright, this card is fantastic. I love this card. It's pretty good too for a common, but I mainly love it for the awesome flavor. Caught in the Brights, 2 generic and a white for Chant Menorah, and enchanted creature can attack or block, so it's a pacifism effect. And when a vehicle you control attacks, you exile the enchanted creature. So it's basically roadkill, which I think is amazing flavor.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yep.
I mean, like you said, this is like Pacify, except for 1 more mana,
right?
You get the additional clause of if a vehicle attacks that you control attacks, it's just exiled forever. And so, yeah, this card's great.
Now, the fact that when you accrue vehicle control attacks, you exile the enchanted creature is really good. But the issue with these enchantment removals in this set in particular, there is a lot of bounce effects. Bouncing is very strong in this set. There's a lot of really different ways to bounce creatures, and it can be devastating to get a creature that you enchanted to just get bounced back, and then you're down a card.
Yeah, bounce is true. Yeah. And another thing with this card is that it doesn't take into the fact that even if you remove a creature, it can still crew things. You can still crew vehicles with this card.
It's not like the one in Kaladesh that prevent it from crewing. I mean, I am partial to these kind of effects. I find them cheaper than normal, than other similar effects. Of course, because you have the downside of a creature with the enchantment getting removed. But I'm generally partial. It's just that in this block, it's just not as strong. There are some glaring weaknesses to these cards.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's Pacify with 1 more mana, so it's a perfectly playable common.
Caught in the Brights is also the illustrious winner of the most flavorful card award. Congratulations! I love the flavor on this card. It's just so funny. Alright, let's move on.
Alright, Consulate Trackdown. It is a 5 CMC enchantment, so another one, rare, in white, 3 generic, 2 white, and when it enters the battlefield, exile all artifacts your opponent controls until Consulate Trackdown leaves the battlefield.
And once again, it's another overpriced enchantment.
I do not want this as my rare.
Nope.
This is a bad card. And the fact that it is an O-ring-like effect, so that when this enchantment is removed, your opponent just gets it all back, it's not that good. Maybe if it had the flexibility of being able to trigger your own artifacts, so that you can maybe put some loose synergy in, like getting a bunch of ETBs back from artifacts you control.
That is a lot of mana and a lot of cards.
But it is too much mana to make it work. Yeah. It is 5 CMC is not worth it.
Yep, and there's a lot of other pretty cheap ways to destroy artifacts and enchantments for the most part. Actually, not so much in this set, but in the other set, we have things like what's it called? Fabricate? No, that's the mechanic. Fragmentize, Appetite Natural. They only target a single creature, artifact or enchantment, but oftentimes the mana efficiency is a lot better than.
Maybe if this card was like a rest in peace type of effect, where it exiles all your opponent's artifacts, plus whenever they play an artifact, it exiles it, then I'd consider it as strong sideboard tech. But in this case, it's too much mana for a card that doesn't really do anything.
Yep. Alright, we got Conviction, 1 generic and a white for Enchant Menorah, enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3, and you can pay 1 white to return Conviction to its owner's hand. Here we have another buff spell. I mean, it is an enchantment this time, but it also gives only 1 power. 3 toughness is nice, but once again, like we mentioned, auras are generally not worth it.
I will say this card is slow, and like we said, auras are generally not worth it. However, this aura, if there's any redeeming part, it's the fact that you can return it to your hand for just a white, so you get 2 for 1 less often, plus if you need to adjust it to another creature, you can. That's a lot of mana for just +1/+3, though, I think.
It's just a waste of a slot.
The rate's just not worth it. It's a waste of a slot in your deck. But however, if you do need to buff up your creatures for whatever reason, like say they just have, overall your creatures have low toughness in your deck, this might not be the worst thing, but I think it is. It's too weak. Don't put it in your deck.
Okay, next up we have Countless Gears, Renegade, 1 generic and a white for a Dwarf Artificer. It's a 2/2 with Revolt. When you trigger Revolt, if you get a 1/1 servo when this enters the battlefield. This is
I like
so
this card.
good. At
This
common,
card's great.
This is fantastic.
It reminds me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Dwinnen's Elite from Origins, except instead of having to have an elf in play, all you got to do is have something leave the battlefield.
Right.
So this card's really strong. Dwinnen's Elite was perfectly playable.
So this is a bear by itself, but as long as you get Revolt, you get its total 3/3 stats for 2. That's so good. I mean, if Revolt is very hard to trigger, which I don't think it'll be super easy, but it might not be the hardest thing to do. This is just borderline amazing, and it is also the recipient of the best white common award. Congratulations! This is great. I will want to see as many of these as possible in my limited decks. Awesome card.
Yeah, it's great. All right, next card is Dawn Feather Eagle. It is 5 CMC, 4 generic, 1 white. It's a common, and it is a bird with 3/3 stats and flying. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn.
It's a 5 mana 3/3 flyer, which is kind of subpar. Creature you control get +1/+1 and vigilance is interesting, but the important thing is you gotta remember with these kind of effects, you gotta have a board first. However, I do have to remember back in Kaladesh, there was a card that's white, and I forget what it's called, but it's a sorcery speed and instant speed, sorry, and it gives all your creatures buffs. That was actually pretty good. There were decks that were built completely around that card, and this is sort of similar.
If this card had flash, I'd be more interested. That way, it can be like a pseudo combat trick as well. But 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer, like you said, is not the greatest rate.
No.
And the +1/+1 and vigilance, it's an effect that entirely depends on your deck. If you have a low creature curve where you can get a lot of creatures out, this might actually be worth it. This might be worth a slot. Otherwise, I think it's too weak on its own.
The red-white aggro deck was pretty decent in Kaladesh, and I think it's going to be pretty good too. So this will have a slot to put it in. I'm talking about a draft, of course. There is a Boros list as well in Standard, but I don't see this coming in. No, it's just not good enough. Alright, Deadeye Harpooner. 2 generic and a white for a Dwarf Warrior 2/2. With the Revolt, when Deadeye Harpooner, little words, enters the battlefield, if a permanent you control left the battlefield, destroy target tapped creature an opponent controls. On a body, that's fine.
Yeah, it's great. I think the card mostly depends on how easy it is for your deck to trigger Revolt. If you can trigger Revolt pretty easily, then yeah, this card's great.
I mean, that's going to be recurring mentality, right? How easy is it to trigger Revolt?
Yeah.
We have yet to really figure out how really easy or how hard it is because we haven't had a chance to actually draft or play. But it's pretty decent. 3 mana 2 is not good.
Realistically trigger Revolt reliably. I think this card is not as good as it looks, just because of the fact that it requires 2 things to align.
Right.
Your opponent has to have a tapped creature,
yep.
And you have to be able to have a permanent leave. So this card, I think you don't slam dunk it. I think it's really dependent on if you have the tools to set up Revolt.
Yep, definitely. And like I said, 3 mana 2/2 is not good. But these effects, whenever you attack on a spell to a creature, it's usually better, essentially. All right, let's move on.
All right, next card is Decommission. It is 3 CMC, 2 generic, 1 white. For an instant, common. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. And it has a Revolt trigger. If a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, you gain 3 life.
So it's essentially a strictly worse version. I mean, it isn't white, but it's basically worse than Appetite for Destruction or whatever that was. Appetite for the Natural.
I like to compare it a lot more to Disenchant, since it's, in the same color pie, which for 1 more mana and, having to trigger the Revolt clause, you gain 3 life. This card, obviously not main deckable. In the sideboard, it's not bad. It's not bad in sideboard.
Oh, well, actually, when I've drafted Kaladesh, these artifact enchantment, well, mostly artifact removal spells, were actually not too bad. You would actually mainboard, like, maybe a Fragmentize or something like that, or a Appetite, just because there are so many chances of you actually hitting something. Renegade Traders and stuff like that, that was always a good chance to actually hit something when it's in the mainboard.
I think against, like, a Boros, especially like a Boros, like, more aggressive vehicle lineup, I think this card's great against decks like those. Any deck where they're getting aggressive with vehicles, this card helps out a lot.
Alright, 1 second, I'll be right back. I'm going to mute my mic, and I'll be right back after 1 minute.
So to everyone watching on Twitch, just like to thank you for joining us. If you type in the comments, just like, what's your favorite card of the set? Aether Revolt is pretty crazy. We'll get to it later, but spoilers, mine's Fatal Push. That card is absurd. I'm mostly a modern player, so that card really appeals to me.
Alright, I'm back. Was I muted?
Yes, you were muted, but welcome back.
Yep, I'll edit that out later when they upload it later to YouTube. Alright, let's move on.
So we just got done with decommission. So Def Dismissal is the next card. 4 CMC, 3 generic, 1 white. It deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 target attacking or blocking creatures at instant speed.
Gideon's Reproach just keeps getting worse and worse. This is good in the fact that you can kill multiple servos or multiple 1 toughness creatures. Or a 2 toughness creature, I suppose, or 1 3 toughness creature. Meh. 4 mana? Ugh.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad rate. I mean, this is okay filler, though. I mean, you can use it for combat tricks. You can just use it as, like, generic removal. But yeah, 4 mana is really expensive.
Tough rate.
I could have easily seen this being 3.
I miss my Gideon's Reproaches. Those were really good. Next card. Hey, Mythic. Exquisite Archangel. 5 generic and a white for a 5/5 flying angel. If you would lose the game, instead exile Exquisite Archangel and your life total becomes equal to your starting life total. Alright, it's a bomb. It's simple as that. 7 mana for 5/5 flyer is a decent enough rate. Actually, you know what? That's the thing though. In limited, 7 toughness creatures, 7 mana can be kinda, it's not tough, but it can be difficult to get to. Like, it's not impossible, but there's always a chance.
Yeah, you need a good amount of lands to get you there.
Yeah.
And I don't like this in limited. I mean, yeah, it's a 5/5 flyer that can be hard to deal with. Yeah, it can pull you back into the game, but you have to be able to cast it. And we have to see how aggressive this format is. But if this format, if you're only expecting to get to turn 5 or turn 6, you're not going to get to play this card.
You know what? You're right. And Kaladesh is truly a very fast format. Well, I mean, Kaladesh was. We'll see how Kaladesh Aether Revolt is, but I'm expecting not much to change. A lot of real quick games. You're very incentivized to really beat down your opponent real quick. So yeah, putting in the 7-drop is risky, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Next card. Felidar Guardian. 4 CMC for 3 generic and a white. You get a creature cat beast 1/4. Whenever Felidar Guardian enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Now, this card is pretty silly because, like, a lot of people are hypothesizing with Kaladesh. In a standard format, you can combine this with Saheeli Rai, the Planeswalker. And basically, the combo is that you play Felidar Guardian, you exile the Saheeli Rai, you use Saheeli Rai's -2 to target Felidar Guardian, making a token copy that gains haste until end of turn, and then use that copy to exile Saheeli, and you repeat. And you can repeat that infinitely And basically, like in Modern, this deck was called Splinter Twin. You get a Splinter Twin-like effect where you can just make a giant board and then attack your opponent for the kill. Now, of course, your opponent can respond by either killing Saheeli or killing Felidar Guardian during the combo, but it is very effective, as in this is one of the few ways that, Standard has seen like a two-card combo kill, and it plays on curve too. You can play Saheeli Rai turn 3, and then you can play Felidar Guardian turn 4. The main problem I see with a combo like this is that it requires you to be in 3 colors. You have to be playing a Jeskai deck, red, blue for Saheeli Rai, and then white for Felidar Guardian. That is the one weakness I see. Plus, you're playing 2 cards that are kind of subpar. Saheeli Rai is not the greatest. It's not a bad Planeswalker, but not the greatest. And Felidar Guardian is really weak.
Little MTG finance. Saheeli Rai had jumped to a $20 price tag.
What was it before? Like 11?
It can't have been much. It wasn't played much. $5 maybe.
Wow.
It was a pretty cheap mythic Planeswalker.
So big jump.
Yep, big jump. People are very excited about potentially comboing off.
We'll have to see how good it is. I honestly don't think it's as good as they think.
No? Because if you don't have your combo pieces, what are you left with? A 4-mana 1/4? Who?
Yeah. And in draft, this guy is really weak.
Well, in draft, it's not... I kind of like these effects. It reminds you of Glimmer Point Stag. Except the stat line is so much more worse. The fact that the stat line is so bad kind of makes me wary of this card, but being able to exile something and bring it back to the battlefield immediately is pretty powerful. And there is a deck in Kaladesh that really abused that effect, really getting a lot of ETB triggers and stuff like that.
If you have good ETBs to take advantage of, it's not the worst, but a 4-mana 1/4 definitely not first pickable. For sure.
So long as your deck is built around being able to bounce things, it's actually a very good pickup. And probably will not contest it too much. Alright, next up we have Jirapur Osprey, so 2 generic and a white for a 2/2 flyer. So it's white Windrake.
Yeah,
it's fine. Yep.
And it's common, so good filler.
Yep, it's fine. That's all we have to say.
Alright, next card, Restoration Specialist. 2 CMC, 1 generic, white. For a 2/1 Dwarf Artificer, and it has an activated ability. For white, sacrifice it. You can return up to 1 target artifact card and up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. This card, by itself, is not the greatest. However, if you consider that in the late game, it can buy you back like either an artifact bomb you have, or if you have both artifacts and auras in your deck for whatever reason.
Pacifisms are actually not that bad.
Both. Yeah, it's not the worst.
Yeah, I remember back in... It might have been...
You mean Caught in the Brights. Yeah. The pacifism of the set.
Exactly. But other effects, there are a lot of other effects that do that too. Like in Kaladesh, there's revoke privileges and stuff like that, which isn't bad to bring back. In Shadows draft, there was a card that lets you bring back an enchantment or artifact from your graveyard. It was a sorcery, and that was actually not that bad because you could bring back your removal spells and just apply them again, which is really good. But another upside to this card is that it's a pretty cheap way to activate Revolt as well. Yep,
triggers Revolt.
Yeah, so triggers Revolt and potentially draws a card, lose a body, but I think that's fine. It's not bad as long as your deck has enough targets,
You can drop to 2 cards potentially.
Up to
that's an and up to 1 target artifact and 1 target enchantment.
Getting back a revoke and a powerful artifact.
I could imagine like a Boros deck where you're running like those enchantments that go in vehicles.
Yeah.
So that whenever your vehicles die, you can play this guy, get your vehicle and your enchantment to turn to a creature back. That's possible.
That's pretty.
This card's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I think it'll see play.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about constructed, but in limited, it's pretty good.
Yep.
Alright, Solemn Accrue. We have 1 white creature, Dwarf Warrior, 2/2, double strike. And with the Revolt, you put a +1/+1 counter on Solemn Accrue at the end. Put a +1 at the beginning of your end step. Yep. Put a +1/+1 counter on Solemn Accrue. I like this card. I think this
card
really good.
Reminds me a lot of Erishan's Foremost from, I believe, Dragons of Tarkir. It was a 3-mana, same mana cost, 2/2 with double strike. Reminds me a lot of this card, except this card does have the potential to get really crazy in the sense that if left unchecked, this card just can take over the game.
I think by itself is also pretty scary. Even with one activation or revolt, you're staring down a 3/3 double striker with only 3 mana. Oh, I think this.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, right?
Very powerful. Yeah.
Now, one thing I'd be careful about is that, spoiler alert, but Shock is in this format. That's 1 mana damage. So we'll have to see how good 2 toughness creatures are, but I think this card is perfectly playable. I think it's actually really strong. Yeah, dies to Shock.
Alright, let's move on. Shrum, Senior Edificer. 1 generic and a white for a legendary creature, Dwarf Advisor. 2/2. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. It's an Enchantress effect. And on a fine body, too. 2 mana for 2/2.
I mean, there's a lot of commander players excited about it just because he's another dwarf commander that you can run, or you can slot him into... who was the red-white dwarf from Kaladesh? Can't remember the name off the top of my head.
But,
yeah, Depala. You can put her in that deck. But another deck people are considering her for is there is another card called Phyrexian. It's not the Crusader. It's the white one. It has a much similar effect where it basically makes it so that whenever you cast an equipment or artifact, you draw a card, and then if you have 3 or more artifacts on the battlefield, like you can equip for 0. A lot of people are suggesting that this card, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like a Mirrodin card or something like that. But basically, in that deck, SRAM help add a little bit of redundancy so that you can basically run 4 of that card in a way.
This one looks promising, for sure.
Yeah.
Alright, talking about SRAM, we also got SRAM's Expertise.
Pure Steel Paladin was the card.
Okay.
I just found it.
Just found it in the nick of time. Alright, so SRAM shows up again here. SRAM's Expertise, 2 generic white for a sorcery speed. Create a 3/1/1 color servos, and you may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So this is the first of a cycle in each color that lets you cast a card of a certain mana cost or less free, and you get this spell as well. And these aren't bad spells either. I mean, 4 mana for 3 bodies is fine, honestly. It's not crazy, but I would play it. But you also get a 3 CMC or less card. Oh boy. These expertise cards have a lot of potential to be really busted. For sure. It depends. We'll have to see if it sees constructed play, though. I mean, I think it might see constructed play.
I mean, the cards, are less about value in this case and more about tempo. You get an insane tempo swing when you get to play cards like SRAM's Expertise, because basically, if you get a 3 mana card off, it's kind of like SRAM's Expertise cost 1 in a way. So it's like 1 mana, summon 3 colorless servo tokens, which is really good. We'll have to see. All right, next card is Thopter Arrest. It's a 3 CMC, 2 and a white for an enchantment. When Thopter Arrest enters the battlefield, exile a target artifact or creature an opponent controls until Thopter Arrest leaves the battlefield. It's a lot like an O-Ring.
Yep, it basically is.
Yep.
Exile target artifact or creature. Okay, so it's fine. 3 mana enchantment. These effects at this mana cost are okay. It's just that, like I said, you got to be careful about blink effects. So the value of these cards go down in this block for the most part. But similarly to the card Caught in the Brights, it's fine. Yeah, you'll play it probably. I tended to pick Revolt Privileges sort of highly when I drafted Kaladesh, and yeah, you can get blown out by a bounce spell, but in reality, it's oftentimes not that too big of a deal. So this is the last white card. We'll now be moving on to the blue cards.